he drunk as much milk from them as would fill the oceans of the world. And the bodies of the bones of the bodies he'd been born with would, kind of fill a mountain. And a great compassion was born in him to see that beings seek happiness but so often find suffering because of not seeing they are part of a greater whole, seeing the nature of interbeing, interconnectedness, that we are all intimately connected in a web of cause and effect. And compassion was born in him. And he attained the states of divine seeing, divine hearing. He could speak and people would hear him in their native language. Basically, these things are a metaphor for all the perfections and beauty of what he had attained. And then, lightning and thunder rendered the night sky, and the demon of ignorance, who's known as Mara, feared that someone was about to get out of the ocean of birth and death and leave his clutches. So he marched towards him with his army of demons, and they shot their arrows at Siddharth. And all these arrows turned to flowers at his feet, which is, symbolic of, if you have a goodwill, if you have loving kindness, when people send you the barbs of anger and hate, they don't harm you because you don't return them. And the Siddhartha became the Buddha, the awakened one. He said, "Oh, jailer, I see you now. How many lifetimes have you kept me trapped in the prison of birth and death? But I shall break your rafter, and your walls shall be broken too. No more shall you hold me in the prison of birth and death." He saw that it was his own ignorance, his own self-grasping of believing in a truly inherent self that is not arising due to causes and conditions. He had grasped at that self and taken birth and birth and birth again and again, driven by self-clinging and craving. And the seeds of karma in him were uprooted. The ignorance in him was uprooted. He realized emptiness, and he became an awakened one. And at that very moment, Mara appeared to him and said, "I shall give you half my kingdom. What right do you, and just don't leave samsara." And Siddhartha said, there is no way to reverse this. I have no desire to stay in the realm of birth and death. And Mara said, "What right do you have to occupy my throne as the leader of the world?" And Siddhartha touched his hand to the earth and said, "The earth is my witness. That's so many lifetimes I have followed the path of the paramis, the path of compassion." And the earth shook, and Mara disappeared. In fact, Mara was Siddhartha's own fear, Siddhartha's own ignorance. In the Thai stories of the life of the Buddha, the earth is a goddess who shakes and helps the Buddha overcome the armies of Mara. Anyway, he became the Buddha, the awakened one, and the sky became clear, the full moon became radiant, and the Buddha was finally at peace and filled with a profound compassion and joy. And he enjoyed this peaceful, beautiful state of mind for many days and did walking meditation by the river. And he just thought, who could possibly understand this thing I've attained? It's too hard to explain. normal people have their eyes full of dust, full of craving. And the king of the gods, Sakka, appeared before him and said, "My lord, there are a few people with just a little dust in their eyes. For the benefit of the world, please formulate your teachings and show the path to liberation. Turn the wheel of Dharma so that all may benefit." And so the Buddha was encouraged by this. And he thought of his friends, the five ascetics. So he walked towards Deer Park in Varanasi, which was a kind of forest for hermits. And sure enough, his friends were there doing their old austere practices. When they saw him coming, they were like, don't serve him, don't show him any respect. He has lost the way. But when they saw his radiant appearance, they just naturally found themselves making a place for him, offering him food and some water and showing respect. And they said, "Siddharth, please tell us how you have been." And he said, "My friends, I have found the way of awakening." And they were very suspicious. And he said, "My friends, you've known me a long time. Have I ever lied to you? Why would I lie to you about this, the most serious of issues?" And they listened, and he told them the Four Noble Truths. There is suffering, birth, old age, sickness, and death, meeting with people you don't like, losing everything you have, having unpleasant things you can't control happen to you, being trapped in the endless wheel of negative emotions, birth, old age, sickness, and death. Just having to struggle to survive, that never-ending cycle of suffering. Then the cause of suffering, which is ignorance, which is grasping at a permanent separate self, being driven by karma, greed, hatred, and delusion in the endless round of negative causations. The end of suffering, the third noble truth, is enlightenment, and the path leading to the end of suffering, which is the noble eightfold path, which is right understanding, meaning understanding the Four Noble Truths, right thought, which is letting go of hatred, ignorance, and craving, and cultivating loving kindness, wisdom, and discrimination in the positive sense, knowing what to adopt and what to abandon. Right thought, letting go of unwholesome states of mind, like, right understanding, right thought, right action. Oh, I've got the right understanding, right thought, right speech, right action. Okay, so right speech is, forgive me if I've got the order slightly wrong. Right speech is giving up harsh speech, gossip, slander, and practicing the opposite of those, and divisive speech, practicing wholesome speech, bringing people together, speaking words of truth, or silence is golden. And then right action, giving up killing, stealing, and lying, instead practicing protecting life, fidelity, protecting others from sexual abuse, non-violence, and forbearance with alcohol and intoxicants. And then, so right understanding, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, number 5, is avoiding the 5 wrong livelihoods, like being a butcher, selling drugs, selling weapons, human trafficking, selling poison, selling alcohol, being a butcher, those kind of jobs. Any job where you do harm, really. And instead practicing a livelihood which benefits others and doesn't do any harm. And then right effort, so right understanding, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort. So making effort to cultivate what is virtuous and to develop positive states of mind that have not yet developed, and let go of unwholesome states that have not yet arisen. And then right mindfulness, which is choosing an object of meditation like the breath, developing samadhi. And finally, which is insight, the final of the Eightfold Noble Path, which is the liberating factor. So this is, sorry, just a little rough. I may have got the order slightly wrong. Anyway, so upon hearing the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Noble Path, one of the five disciples became enlightened on the spot. And in the following weeks, all five of those disciples became enlightened. And then gradually over time, the Buddha's teachings spread. One day he met these fire worshippers, and there were about 500 of them. So they all became his disciples, and they cut off their dreadlocks. And the brother of these fire worshippers, who also had his own sect, saw the fire implements and the hair of all his brother and his followers, and he was concerned. So he came to find out what was going on, and he heard the Buddha's teaching and was so moved that his disciples also converted. And eventually the Buddha converted King Bimbisara and so many other kings. And Buddhism, became a massive force. I think at one point in history, half of India was Buddhist, especially in the time of Ashoka. But, at the time of the Buddha, his teachings were still quite small. His followers maybe numbered in several thousand people over his lifetime. He also made his way back to Kapilavastu, where he taught his father, his son, and his ex-wife Yashodhara. Both became monastics, as did his stepmother, and started the Bhikkhuni order. At first, the Buddha was a little bit worried about where the nuns would stay and if they'd be safe, if they'd be accepted by society, which tended to view women as property. But eventually he was convinced that there was a way nuns could live in safety. And that's thanks to his devoted attendant and cousin Ananda. He affirmed women's capacity for awakening. He also accepted people from the ex-untouchable community into the Sangha 2,600 years ago. And this is why, in a way, Buddhism was quite radical, but also became a little bit of a threat to the Brahmins, whose whole livelihood was based on the caste system and the idea that they were superior to people of other castes, that they were preordained by destiny to rule over other castes and to perform rituals and bless and save others. Whereas the Buddha was anti-caste, anti-discrimination, and he said, that ritual without inner wisdom, without inner liberation is useless. He said it's like calling to the other side of the river to save you instead of getting in a boat and crossing over yourself. So all of the Buddha's family, except his father, became enlightened. His father became like the first step of becoming an arhat just before he died. And there are many beautiful stories in the life of the Buddha. The Buddha had an amazing sponsor called Anathapindika. And Anathapindika bought some land from a prince, Jeta's Grove. And Jeta was like, I'm never going to sell this. I love this land. And Anathapindika said, I will cover the land in gold. I will cover all the land with golden coins. And so this Jeta's Grove became one of the Buddha's most beautiful monasteries. And Bamboo Forest Monastery was another one. The Buddha had, many monasteries all over Bihar and a little bit into UP. The monks in the rainy season, they would come for 3 months and stay in a particular place, and the Buddha's disciples would gather around him. So he developed the fourfold Sangha, the monks, nuns, lay women and laymen, and there were also many accomplished lay people who became arhats and became teachers. There was a story of a woman who was so attached to her own beauty. She was a consort of a king, and she was incredibly beautiful. And her husband kind of tricked her into coming to see the Buddha, because he was like, well, everyone who's anyone is there, and if you're not there, you're obviously, no longer on the A social list. So when she heard the Buddha's teaching, she became an arhat, and what he did was he created the illusion of a beautiful woman and then aged her to a skeleton and to dust, all in front of in one go. And this girl realized the futility of clinging to temporary things, and had this deep insight into selflessness at that very moment. And so she became a nun. There were also stories of women who had lost children and had, whose partners had attempted to murder them, women who'd lost their entire families in floods, who had incredibly difficult lives, and men who'd done menial labor or really difficult work, kind of enslaved work, and then found peace in as a meditating monk or a nun and become liberated. So it wasn't just a case that only elite people got enlightened. And the Buddha ate equally. He would go amongst the poor and accept food that was begged, and he would also eat with kings. And he, said monks and nuns should not be elitist, that they should be of the people. The Buddha also demonstrated his compassion, taking care of a fellow sick monk, and encouraged the monks in the Sangha to be compassionate, to treat each other like family, and to care for the vulnerable. The Buddha traveled all over northern India until he was 80, giving teachings. The 4 most important holy places of Buddhism are Kushinagar, Lumbini. I got it wrong before I said Kushinagar. Lumbini was where he's born. Bodh Gaya in Bihar is where he got enlightened. Deer Park in Uttar Pradesh is where he gave his first teaching. And Kushinagar in UP is where he passed away, under the red sal trees. And when he was passing away, he'd been to the home of a blacksmith who had given him some food, which was possibly pork or some kind of poisonous mushroom. And the Buddha said to Ananda, please don't tell this blacksmith that he poisoned me. He'll feel very bad. I was due to die anyway. I'm elderly and my whole body aches. It's time for me to pass away from the world. And he lay down under some sal trees, and he just said to Ananda, see the beautiful sal trees, see the 4-fold Sangha. We are blessed. Live in the present moment. Be a light unto yourself, a refuge unto yourself. Do not waste time, but seek liberation through your own efforts. And he answered any final questions that people had. He accepted a monk into the Sangha. And he said, he encouraged his students to live in the present moment with virtue and wisdom and compassion. And lying on his right side, he passed away from the world. And then his Arhat disciples gathered together and recited the entire canon of teachings. And that oral tradition was passed down for 100 years until it was written down. It was written on banana leaves and then compiled into books. And it was called the Tripitaka, the 3 baskets, which was the Vinaya, the Code of Ethics, the Sutra Pitaka, the direct teachings, and the Abhidharma Pitaka, the teachings on the nature of reality and the universe. And these became the foundation of what we we call as Buddhism today. But as Mahayana Buddhism became more evident over time, the emphasis shift from becoming an arhat, getting out of the wheel of birth and death, to becoming a bodhisattva and following the path of the perfections. And the 10 perfections, or the 6, if you're a Tibetan Buddhist, 10 meaning generosity, morality, renunciation, gaining insight, joyous energy, patience, truthfulness, resolution, loving kindness, and equanimity. These are the 10 perfections of a bodhisattva. found in the Pali Canon. So even in the Pali Canon, the ideal of a bodhisattva is there. It just wasn't emphasized because they thought it's a longer, harder path. But the result is also very profound. You know, a wheel-turning Buddha has more power than an arhat to, you know, I mean, the fact, because of the Buddha's past vows and merit, his teachings are still here today. And the Buddha was just such a, I mean, this was 2,600 years ago, and this is a person who is so rational and compassionate and, you know, embracing women and outcast people as equals, caring for the sick, treating everyone equally, you know, born into great privilege, but casting it all aside for the highest level of truth and sharing that with everyone for no profit, completely uncorrupt. I can think of no greater way to live your life as a great archetype. So in Mahayana, the Buddha is not just a historical person. He is an archetype of awakening, a force of awakening in compassion present in everyone. And, you know, his awakening became a source of art and beauty that flowered all over Northern Asia. And, you know, don't take my words for it, just try it for yourself. But on this day, we remember the awakening of the Buddha, his life. We celebrate his birth into the world. We take refuge in our Sangha, in our community, and we renew our commitment to bodhicitta, living with compassion and ethics, and following the path to awakening. And we usually light some candles and flowers and do some puja, some Pali chanting or Tibetan chanting, and recite the sutras, do meditation all night long, eat some nice food, and really have a mindful day, you know, casting aside worldly concerns. And usually Buddhists will do that every full moon. They'll wear white and go to the temple and renew their commitment to living a life of awakening. So I hope you've enjoyed this Dharma talk, and I hope you'll visit me all in Tasmania, especially people who are interested in ordaining. And I wish you peace in these troubled times, peace, healing, and safety, especially my friends in India who are in such a difficult and dangerous situation with COVID. May there be happiness in the world. Thus by the merit made by me now or at some other time, be shared amongst all beings here, infinite, immeasurable, by rejoicing in this cause, this gift of merits given by me. May beings all forever live a happy life, be free of hate. May they find the path secure and their good wishes all succeed. May we quickly realize all things to be no more substantial than the dream fabric of the night, and instantly awaken to perceive the pure wisdom display in the arising of every phenomena. My friends will become nothing, my foes will become nothing, I too will become nothing. Just like a dream experience, whatever things I've enjoyed will become a memory, whatever is past will not be seen again. Those Buddhas and Bodhisattvas who plan to pass away, I request you not to, but to shine the lamp of Dharma for all bewildered in the gloom of ignorance. The Buddhas neither wash ill deeds away with water nor remove beings' sufferings with their hands. Beings are released through the teachings of the truth, the final reality. I will liberate those not liberated. I will release those not released and place those in nirvana. Thus, by the virtue of all that I have done, may the pain of all living beings be cleared away. May the precious mind of bodhicitta not yet born arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase more and more. May the Dharma spread to all directions end. May all beings have peace and live with compassion for each other. May you swiftly attain Buddhahood. Thank you and all the best. Happy Wesak.